Welcome to our November TechByte. I can't believe it's November, almost Thanksgiving. Um, I wanted to talk today about something that's a little bit newer, a little bit different. Definitely some cool stuff. I promised last time I'd have a little less slides, and I have two. I want to show two slides, so shouldn't be too bad. But today we're going to talk about CloudGuard Spectral, right? Checkpoint acquired a company called Spectral back in February. Spectral is a developer-centric code security platform, right? So it's literally monitoring, classifying, what is the code, what are the assets, what's in your cloud infrastructure. It protects against like exposed API keys and tokens and stuff like that. The idea here is that we have developers working on things that they pull out of repositories like GitHub and GitLab and like a bunch of other places, and the repositories and the containers they're pulling out of there are, it could be questionable, right? We don't know exactly what's in them, right? The developer knows that it makes a little widget work on their code or whatever, but they don't review it and it's not their fault, but they don't review it to see that it's secure code, right? So again, I got two slides. I'm going to throw them right up right now. There we go. I'm going to minimize this. So the engineers are moving fast, right? They make micro decisions faster than anyone could regulate or authorize, right? They're adding things, changing things, pulling from new containers with newer code in them all the time, right? This is happening quick, right? And you talk about the speed of the cloud, right? That's part of what we're talking about, is that it's so many changes and adds and subtractions and all that are happening so fast that the security team really has no viable way to, step in into the middle of that process. What we start to see when companies get more down this path is infrastructure as code, right? Internal applications that pull from repositories, perhaps public repositories, right? Everything becomes code, right? And this introduces mistakes, risks, misconfiguration, etc., right? And then the other thing is as you start pulling from these sources, it becomes like your chain of supply, your software or infrastructure supply kind of becomes a chain of chains, right? It's not, hey, this thing is, part A is linked to part B and part B is linked to part C. It's part A is linked to part B, which pulls from, B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, which then pulls from C, which is C7, 8, 9, 10, and it becomes this very complex system, right? That relies on a lot of things that are outside of your control or at least in a blind spot, right? Let's not say outside of your control, but in a blind spot, right? We don't know that there's problems with the code. And it's happening all over, right? Here's a bunch of examples. Starbucks had an open API key that could be used to access internal systems. Some of these companies are security companies, and you see like this one at the bottom, the retailer Orvis. They had an open key that allowed a leak of hundreds of internal passwords, including their firewall and routers and admin accounts. So Intel lost source code due to this type of stuff. So it's a real thing, right? That's really all I wanted to show for slides. I wanted to keep the slide count down. So I'm gonna move right over to my demo. So here's Spectral, right? Here's our dashboard in Spectral. When you come in here, you land right here. it gives you this overview of, let me just size this thing. There we go. Okay. This gives you this bird's eye view, right, of all the organization's assets, and it's in different, it can be mapped in different ways, logically, however it works for you. But here's like an environment called demo point. There are many assets in here that it's looking at. There's another one called infrastructure, and there's more here, as you can see. And the different color, the different squares or cubes each are an asset, right? Could be a piece of code, could be a like an S3 bucket, could be a lot of different things. The color coding tells us what's the status with it, right? Red's an error, yellow's a warning, blue is just info we came up with. The majority of these, because it is a demo environment, are not active, which is why they're just kind of this, drab color or gray or whatever it is. You can click anything in here and it'll drill down to what is causing it to be of high interest. But I want to show you real quick. Where's our sources for this tool, right? And it's quite a few. Natively out of the box, it works with GitLab, GitHub, Travis and Jenkins, all these, AWS, Azure. You can also manually add one if it'll fit. It's the tool is designed with code, with platform and code agnostic approach, right? So we want to integrate as much as we can with as many different things as we can and be able to interpret as much code as we possibly can. And again, you see a few other things, Terraform. It also will monitor some productivity suites, right? Because your developers might be sharing something through Jira or through Slack or Confluence. So that's also something that it will take care of. So let's go ahead and look at some of the things we've come up with here. So I want to search for a specific environment that I know has some juicy info. So literally you set up for scans, it can do it, on any interval you want, or you can manually scan things. I'm searching through our assets that we have linked to this environment. We came up with quite a few source issues, right? So let's click on a specific thing. Let's try this YAML file, for example. So on this device, on this, come on, it's like, gotta resize this a little bit. There we go. Okay. So this will show you the errors that it's come up with, right? And as you can see, there's quite a few of them. Let's click on here. See if we get. All right. So as an example, the NSG inbound rule is overly permissive, right? It's allowing all traffic on TCP. And if we click on this source code, we can actually see here, right, that it's basically unfinished. And it's allowing from basically anything, right? If we click on this rule, it opens what's called a playbook. And the playbook will actually allow us to give us the, what is the risk, right? And what is the remediation, right? In Azure, we would navigate to all services, go to network security groups, and change the inbound security rules, right? So that's the idea, right? Is that we have this ability, is to find all these, misconfigurations and go ahead and give you like a playbook to answer them. Now it finds things like that, right, where it's a network-based issue, right? There's too much accessibility, right? It also will give you warnings, right, that your functions are untagged, things like that. I want to go back one to, and you could do it by different subheadings here, right? So that was like the infrastructure as code. On the secret side, is you can see when like a password is hard coded into code, right? So literally right here, this piece of code has for this machine, the login, the username and password right here in the code, which obviously is not good because anybody who can review the code will be able to find this. And again, once you've seen that this is a problem, you can go ahead and look at this and it will tell you, what to do and how to fix it, right? It's telling you to use like a password vault to avoid this issue. There's a variety of other things, right? It can also do some hardening of code, right? Just the general security against intrusions and things like that. And then the sprawl is kind of cool. It can take it looks for like that login information we just found, and it will tell you where it's finding it, right? It's finding it in this bucket, in this README document. It's finding it in this JSON file. It's going to be the same username and password that we discovered across these different assets, so you know where to make these fixes, right? Trying to think of what else I wanted to show. There's I wanted to show the reporting too. So that's the general idea behind what it can show you on your assets. The other side of the coin is the reporting, right? You want to be able to prove, hey, where are we today? Where are we trying to get to? And what's the biggest problem we're facing, right? And here's some of the report dashboard, right? It shows you all your active issues by severity, right? And you can even flip this around to show like which thing you're going after, right? So if you want to go after the shared, the shared secrets, you could dive right in with that. You see there's 4,800 errors there in this environment, which again, we've designed this environment with this purpose in mind. Or you can go after infrastructure as code. You can just see the totals. Shows you by the source, by the status, right? Because you can ignore certain things if you want to. If you want to just say, hey, let that stay and don't worry about it. And you can even show you across your teams, right? So you can have a discussion with a team. Let's say hey, this demo point group is going a little too fast and maybe pulling from some suspicious locations and getting code that's exposing us as a company, right? As an example. You also do it by your assets, right? So this demo point environment has quite a few issues. Some trends. You could change the scope of these to to see info that's a little bit more current or localized, right? So that's about the reports. These can be exported as well. Any questions so far? I'm gonna look in the Q&A, look in the chat. Okay, no questions so far. Yeah, I mean, this is that was about what I wanted to show. I can go over like the settings a little bit, but there's like the ability to not just report but also alert, right? If we see new issues, you can get an alert, so you don't have to wait for the report or come in here. It's fairly straightforward. That's the other thing I kind of failed to mention, is that to set this up to run takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It's just a little bit of code you add, and then once you're up here, you literally just follow the instructions, right? So if you want to add a source, let's say we're going to add a, let's add a AWS code build. Literally, it tells you the steps on how to add it, right? Right here, you generate a secret, and then you go ahead and put this code in. And once you're done, click I'm done, and it'll actually be able to scan that environment. So it's pretty straightforward to get things in here as well. So it's not like a super long implementation or trial. That's about all I wanted to get across today. I'm going to look again in the Q&A and the chats. Okay. I'm just going to see if anybody has any questions. Yeah, there's kind of a comment about you know, it's not necessarily pertaining. You know, this is for a company that's doing a lot of web development, like CI/CD pipeline, that type of thing. You get this more for companies that are building a lot of things in the cloud, building a lot of things that are web facing, like public websites and so forth. So that sort of thing. Okay, another question. Is this in the Infinity portal? So, okay, so that's a good question. So today Spectral is not in the Infinity portal. It's still being migrated to there. It will be eventually, but today it's actually a separate management here. But as you can see, I mean, it's pretty close, pretty similar to what you might experience in the Infinity portal. So it's not. I don't think the learning curve for using the tool. I don't think is that great. You know, you do have a learning curve in terms of understanding better pipeline security, right? Good question.